The message arrived on a cold winter morning in Seoul. Kang Ji-won was drinking tea in her small office when her assistant rushed in with a tablet. The screen showed symbols that no human had seen before first contact, 3 years ago. But now, everyone in the diplomatic corps knew what they meant. The Valoran Galactic Empire was calling. Ji-won read the message twice. Her face showed nothing. After 53 years of life, she had learned to hide her feelings well. The message was simple. Earth was being summoned to the imperial court. A representative must come to accept the terms of protection. The Empire would register humanity as a primitive species under their care. She put down her tea and looked out the window at the gray sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the clouds and the stars, an empire of 12,000 worlds waited. They had ships that could destroy planets. They had technology that made humanity look like children playing with sticks, and they wanted Earth to kneel. 3 days later, Ji-won stood in front of the World Council. Leaders from every nation watched her on screens. She was not a tall woman. Her hair was gray at the sides, and she wore simple clothes. But when she spoke, everyone listened. "They see us as insects," she said. "They think we will thank them for not stepping on us. But we know things they do not expect us to know. I will go to their court. I will smile and bow, and when the time is right, I will show them who we really are." The council approved her mission. Most of them did not understand what she meant. Only a few knew about the files. Only a few knew what humanity had discovered in the old ruins on Mars and in the data stolen from Valoran networks. The truth was too big, too terrible, to share with everyone. Not yet. Ji-won chose only one person to go with her. Baek Sun-ho was 28 years old. He had a round face and a quick smile that made people trust him. But behind that smile was one of the sharpest minds in the intelligence service. He had spent 5 years learning Valoran language, culture, and secrets. He knew their weaknesses better than they knew themselves. "Are you afraid?" Ji-won asked him as they walked toward the launch site. Sun-ho thought about it. "A little," he admitted. "But mostly I am angry. When I read those files, when I saw what they did to our people, I could not sleep for a week. They killed millions of us and then forgot about it. Like we were nothing." Ji-won nodded. "Hold on to that anger. But hide it deep. We cannot let them see it until we are ready." The ship that would carry them was called the Horizon's Edge. It was humanity's first true interstellar vessel. From the outside, it looked small and simple. The Valorans would laugh at it. They did not need to know about the hidden compartments, the encrypted communication systems, or the weapons that could punch through warship armor. They did not need to know that this little ship had been built with secrets stolen from their own engineers. The journey to Valora Prime took 11 days. Ji-won spent most of that time reading reports and preparing her words. Sun-ho monitored Valoran communications and updated their intelligence files. They ate together twice a day and talked about small things. Favorite foods, childhood memories, the cherry blossoms in spring. They did not talk about what was coming. They did not need to. Both of them had memorized every detail of the plan. Both of them knew that they might not come back. On the 8th day, Sun-ho came to Ji-won with new information. "They are preparing a welcome ceremony," he said. 10,000 warships will be waiting for us when we arrive. It is meant to scare us." "Good," Ji-won said. "Let them waste their fuel on showing off. It tells us they feel the need to impress a primitive species. That means they are not as confident as they pretend." Sun-ho smiled. "You see everything, Ambassador. I see enough. Now, show me the layout of the throne room again. I want to know exactly where every camera is placed." They practiced the meeting 100 times. Ji-won memorized every word she would say. Sun-ho calculated every possible response from the Emperor and his advisors. They prepared for threats, for insults, for violence. They prepared for everything. On the morning of the 11th day, the Horizon's Edge dropped out of hyperspace above Valora Prime. The planet was beautiful in a cold way. Its surface was covered in silver cities and purple oceans. 3 moons hung in the sky, each one decorated with orbital stations the size of small countries. And around the planet, filling the space like metal clouds, were the warships. 10,000 vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons glowed with ready power. Their formations were perfect. They wanted humanity to see their strength and despair. Jiwan stood at the observation window and looked at the fleet. Behind her, Sunho waited nervously. "Ambassador," he said. Jiwan was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned away from the window and walked to her quarters. At the door, she paused. "Bring me my hanbok," she said. "The blue one with the silver thread. If I am going to face an empire, I will do it dressed as my grandmother would have wanted." Sunho bowed and hurried to obey. Alone in her room, Jiwan looked at herself in the mirror. She saw an old woman with tired eyes. She saw a diplomat who had spent her whole life solving problems with words, but deep inside, she also saw something else. She saw the anger that burned cold in her heart. She saw the faces of 400 million dead, calling out across 3,000 years for justice. She put on the hanbok slowly, carefully. The silk felt cool against her skin. The silver thread caught the light like stars. "Let them see what they want to see," she whispered to her reflection. "Let them see a scared little primitive from a forgotten world. Let them laugh and feel superior." She straightened her collar and lifted her chin, and then let them learn the truth. The door chimed. Sunho's voice came through the speaker. "Ambassador, the Valorans are sending an escort. They will bring us to the surface in 1 hour." Jiwan took a deep breath. 3,000 years of waiting, 50 years of preparation. And now, finally, the moment had come. "Tell them we are ready," she said. She walked out of her room with her head held high, carrying the weight of humanity's stolen history on her shoulders. The Valoran Empire thought they were welcoming a primitive species to their court. They had no idea that they were about to face something far more dangerous. They were about to face the truth. The throne room of the Valoran Empire was built to make visitors feel small. The ceiling rose so high that clouds formed near the top. The walls were made of living crystal that sang soft notes when the light touched them. The floor was polished mirror stone that reflected everything, making the room seem endless. Kang Jiwan walked across that floor with steady steps. Her blue hanbok moved softly around her ankles. Beside her, Baek Sunho kept his face calm, but his eyes were recording everything. Every guard position, every camera, every exit. Hundreds of aliens lined the sides of the Great Hall. They came from dozens of species, all of them subjects of the Empire. Some had scales, some had fur, some had bodies that Jiwan could not understand. But they all had one thing in common. They looked at the two humans with pity in their eyes. "Poor primitives," their faces said. "They do not know what they are walking into." The walk to the throne took 5 minutes. It was designed that way. By the time visitors reached the Emperor, they were supposed to be tired and afraid. Jiwan used the time to slow her breathing and calm her heart. At the end of the hall, on a throne made of compressed starlight, sat Emperor Vorath the Eternal. He was tall even while sitting. His body was covered in scales that shifted color with his mood. 4 eyes glowed on his ancient face, each one older than human civilization. He had ruled the empire for 400 years. He had seen species rise and fall like waves on a beach. To him, humans were nothing. Just another primitive race to be catalogued and forgotten. Standing beside the throne was Lady Myrelle, the Imperial Chancellor. Her species had 3 arms and skin like polished wood. She held a scroll made of light and read from it in a voice that filled the hall. "The species known as human, from the planet designated Earth, is hereby summoned to accept the protection of the Valoran Galactic Empire. Under this protection, Earth will be monitored for development. Human expansion beyond their home system is forbidden. Human technology will be reviewed and restricted as needed. In return, the Empire will defend Earth from external threats and guide human development toward acceptable standards." She looked at Jiwan with cold eyes. "Do the representatives of humanity accept these terms?" The hall fell silent. Every eye turned to the small human woman in her blue silk dress. They expected her to bow. They expected her to thank the Emperor for his mercy. They expected the performance that 100 other primitive species had given before her. Jiwan did not bow. She stood straight and looked directly at the Emperor. In Valoran culture, this was almost an insult. Only equals looked at each other directly. "Before we discuss terms, Jiwan said. I must address a matter of grave importance. Whispers ran through the crowd. Lady Muriel's 3 arms tightened in anger. But Emperor Vorath raised one scaled hand, and silence returned instantly. Speak, human, the Emperor said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. We are curious what a primitive thinks is important. Jiwan reached into her sleeve and pulled out a small metal disc. She pressed it, and light erupted from it, forming a holographic image that floated in the air above her head. The image showed a planet. It was blue and green, with white clouds and silver cities dotting its surface. It looked peaceful, beautiful, alive. Then the image changed. Fire fell from the sky. The cities burned. The oceans boiled. The continents cracked open like eggs. Millions of small lights tried to flee into space, but they were swatted down by weapons fire. In minutes, the beautiful world became a dead rock, glowing red with heat. A timestamp appeared in the corner of the image. 2,847 years ago. Coordinates followed. The Kepler 442 system. This was our colony, Jiwan said. Her voice was steady, but it carried to every corner of the hall. 400 million humans lived there. Families, children, artists and farmers and teachers. They had done nothing wrong. They had threatened no one. She turned slowly, letting everyone see the image of death that hung above her. Your 3rd expansion fleet destroyed them. Every single one. And then your empire erased all records of their existence. You told the galaxy that humanity had never left Earth. You told your own people that we were primitives who had not yet discovered fire. The silence in the throne room was absolute. Even the crystal walls stopped singing. Lady Myrelle was the first to speak. This is absurd, she said. Humans had no interstellar capability 3,000 years ago. Everyone knows this. You are showing us fiction and calling it history. Am I? Jiwan asked. She looked at Sunho. The young man stepped forward and pressed his own device. More images appeared. Ship fragments floating in space, covered in Valoran military markings, genetic records showing that some survivors had fled back to Earth, documents with imperial seals, ordering the complete destruction of the human colony and the isolation of the home planet. We found the wreckage, Jiwan said. We decoded your own military files. We tested our own blood and found the markers of radiation exposure from Valoran weapons, passed down through generations. The survivors made it back to Earth, but the journey broke them. They lost their technology. They lost their records. They lost their memory of what happened. She stepped closer to the throne. Guards moved to stop her, but Emperor Vorath held up his hand again. For almost 3,000 years, Jiwan continued. We forgot. We thought we had always been alone. We thought we had never left our little world. But we found the ruins on Mars. We found the old ships buried under our oceans. And slowly, painfully, we remembered. Emperor Vorath leaned forward on his throne. His 4 eyes studied Jiwan with new interest. This was not the reaction of a primitive. This was something else entirely. You come to my court, he said slowly, and accuse my empire of genocide. You claim we destroyed your people and erased your history. These are serious words. Human, do you understand the consequences of lying to me? Jiwan met his gaze without fear. I understand perfectly, Your Majesty. That is why I am not lying. Every piece of evidence I have shown is real. Every document is genuine. Your own archives contain the proof, hidden in files that your people forgot existed. We found them. We copied them. We translated them. She held out her hands, showing she had no weapons. But her voice was stronger than any blade. You attacked our home. You killed our children. You stole our history and left us to die in ignorance. And now, after 3,000 years, humanity has come to ask one simple question. The Emperor waited. Jiwan's eyes burned with cold fire. What are you going to do about it? The throne room exploded into chaos. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. Alien diplomats pushed toward the exits. Imperial guards raised their weapons and pointed them at the 2 humans standing before the throne. Through it all, Kang Jiwan did not move. She stood like a stone in a river, letting the panic flow around her. Beside her, Sunho's hand twitched toward the hidden weapon in his sleeve, but he did not draw it. Not yet. Emperor Vorath rose from his throne. Standing at full height, he was nearly 3 meters tall. His scales had turned deep red, a sign of anger in his species. His 4 eyes blazed like dying stars. Silence. His voice shook the walls. The crystal pillars hummed with the force of it. The room went quiet. Guards froze in place. Diplomats stopped their scramble for the doors. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. The Emperor walked down the steps from his throne. Each footstep rang against the mirror stone floor. He stopped directly in front of Jiwan, towering over her like a mountain over a mouse. "You are either very brave or very stupid," he said. "Perhaps both. Tell me, human, do you understand what you have done? You have accused my empire of war crimes in front of witnesses from 100 worlds. You have challenged my honor, my ancestors' honor." "I have told the truth," Jiwan replied. "What you do with that truth is your choice." Lady Muriel pushed through the crowd of guards. Her 3 arms moved in sharp gestures of anger. "Your Majesty, this is obviously a trick. The humans must have created false evidence. They are trying to embarrass us, to weaken our position. We should arrest them immediately. Should we?" The Emperor did not look at his Chancellor. His eyes remained fixed on Jiwan. "Tell me, human, how did you obtain these documents? How did a primitive species access Imperial military archives?" Jiwan nodded at Sunho. The young man stepped forward again, his face calm despite the weapons pointed at his chest. 50 years ago, Sunho said. "Your scouts found Earth. They watched us from orbit. They studied our technology, our culture, our biology. They decided we were not a threat. They left monitoring satellites and moved on." He smiled slightly. "They did not realize that we saw them too. One of your scouts crashed in our ocean. We recovered it. We studied it. We learned." Images appeared in the air around him. Human scientists working on alien technology. Ships being built in hidden facilities. Agents meeting with aliens on distant worlds. "We learned your language first," Sunho continued. "Then your computer systems. Then your communication networks. Within 20 years, we had agents on 40 worlds. We listened to your broadcasts. We copied your files. We made friends among your subject species." Lady Morel's face went pale. "Impossible. Our security systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. No primitive species could breach them." "You are right," Sunho said. "No primitive species could. But we are not primitive, Chancellor. We never were. We simply forgot what we were capable of, and when we remembered, we had 50 years of watching you to help us catch up." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, but somehow more dangerous. "You speak of agents, of allies, of 50 years of spying. But even if all this is true, what does it matter? You are 2 humans in the heart of my empire, surrounded by guards, far from any help. What can you possibly hope to achieve?" Jiwan stepped forward. She was so close to the Emperor now that she could smell the strange scent of his scales. Metal, and lightning, and something very old. "You burned our colony because you feared what we might become," she said. "You thought we were dangerous. You thought that if you let us grow, we would eventually challenge you. So you decided to destroy us before we had the chance." She tilted her head, looking up at his towering form without fear. "You were right to be afraid." The images around them changed again. This time they showed something different. Hidden bases in asteroid fields. Ships that did not match any known human design. Weapons that glowed with stolen Velaran technology. "We have been preparing," Jiwan said. "Quietly, carefully, while your scouts watched our public cities and laughed at our primitive rockets. We were building. We took your technology and improved it. We found your weaknesses and planned around them." She gestured at the images. 17 of your worlds have human agents living on them right now. 4 species under your rule have signed secret agreements with us. We know the patrol routes of your border fleets. We know the access codes to your communication networks. We know the names of every admiral, every general, every governor in your empire. Lady Morel looked like she was about to collapse. "This cannot be true. Your Majesty. She must be bluffing. Am I? Jiwan asked. She looked at the Chancellor with something almost like pity. Your nephew, the one who serves on the 7th Fleet, has a weakness for gambling. He owes money to 3 different criminal organizations. Your own brother has been selling military secrets to us for the past 8 years. Would you like me to continue? The Chancellor stumbled backward. Her 3 arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold her body together. Emperor Vorath was silent. His scales had shifted from red to something darker, something Jiwan did not recognize. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Why are you telling me this? If you have all these advantages, why reveal them? You could have used them in secret. You could have struck at us without warning. Jiwan's expression softened slightly. For a moment, she looked not like a diplomat or a spy, but like a grandmother about to give advice to a foolish child. Because we do not want war, she said. We never wanted war. 3,000 years ago, we were explorers. We wanted to see the stars and meet other species and learn wonderful things. Your empire looked at us and saw a threat, but we were never your enemy. We only became your enemy because you made us one. She spread her hands. We are here to give you a choice, Your Majesty. We can be partners, or we can be enemies. We can build something together, or we can tear each other apart. Humanity is very good at destroying things when we need to, but we are even better at building them. The question is, which do you want? The Emperor stared at her for a long time. The throne room was completely silent. Every alien in the hall held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Finally, slowly, Emperor Vorath sat back down on his throne. His 4 eyes never left Jiwan's face. Continue, he said. I am listening. Kang Jiwan took a deep breath. This was the moment she had prepared for her entire life. Every word had to be perfect. Every pause had to mean something. She was not just speaking for herself. She was speaking for 400 million dead souls and 8 billion living ones. Let me tell you what humanity wants, she said. And then let me tell you what will happen if we do not get it. Emperor Vorath leaned back on his throne. His 4 eyes watched her like a predator studying prey that had suddenly grown claws. Around them, the throne room remained frozen. Guards stood like statues. Diplomats barely dared to breathe. Even Lady Muriel had stopped protesting. First, Jiwan said, we want acknowledgement. Not in private. Not in secret documents that will be buried in archives. We want a public statement from the Empire, admitting what was done to our colony. We want the galaxy to know that humanity was attacked without cause, that our people were murdered, and that our history was stolen from us. She paused to let the words settle. Second, we want equality. No more protected primitive status. No more monitoring or restrictions. Humanity will be recognized as a sovereign interstellar nation with the same rights as any other species in this galaxy. We will expand where we choose. We will build what we want. We will make our own decisions about our own future. A murmur ran through the crowd of watching diplomats. This was unprecedented. No species had ever demanded equality from the Empire. They either submitted, or they were destroyed. Third, Jiwan continued, we want justice, not revenge. We do not ask you to execute your admirals or tear apart your government, but the families of those who ordered the attack on our colony will publicly apologize. A memorial will be built on Valora Prime itself, honoring the 400 million humans who died, and 1% of the Imperial Treasury will be given to Earth as payment for what was taken from us. Lady Muriel finally found her voice. 1% of the Treasury? Do you have any idea how much that is? It would bankrupt 100 worlds. It is less than the value of the lives your empire stole. Jiwan replied coldly. Be grateful we are not asking for more. Emperor Vorath raised a hand to silence his chancellor. His expression was unreadable. And, if we refuse these demands? What then, human? You have shown me your spies and your hidden weapons. Impressive. For a species we thought primitive, but you cannot honestly believe you can defeat my empire in open war. No. Jiwan admitted. We cannot. Not today. Not tomorrow. Perhaps not in 100 years. Your fleets outnumber ours by thousands to one. Your technology is still more advanced in many areas. If we fought you directly, we would lose. She stepped closer to the throne. Her voice dropped, becoming almost gentle. But we would not fight you directly, Your Majesty. That is not how humanity makes war. She gestured, and new images filled the air. Star maps showing key systems, supply lines that crossed the galaxy, communication hubs that connected the Empire's vast territory. We would disappear into the dark spaces between stars. We would strike at your supply lines and vanish before your fleets could respond. We would spread information to your subject species, reminding them of every crime your empire has committed. We would make every victory cost you twice what it was worth. We would be a wound that never heals, a fire that never goes out. The Emperor's scales shifted to a color Ji-won did not recognize, something between anger and fear. You speak of terrorism, he said. I speak of survival, Ji-won replied. You taught us this, Your Majesty, 3,000 years ago. Your empire looked at a peaceful species of explorers and decided we were too dangerous to exist. You tried to destroy us completely. You failed, and now that species has returned, shaped by the lesson you taught us. She spread her hands. You showed us that the galaxy is not a place for peaceful explorers. It is a place where the strong destroy the weak, unless the weak become too costly to destroy. So we became costly. We became dangerous. We became exactly what you feared we would be. The throne room was completely silent. Ji-won could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. But here is the truth that your ancestors did not understand, she continued. Humans do not want to be dangerous. We do not want to be your enemy. We want to build, not destroy. We want to explore, not conquer. We want to meet other species and learn from them and share what we know. She looked around the room at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. 3,000 years ago, we reached out to the stars with open hands. Your empire cut those hands off, but we have grown new ones. And now we are reaching out again, offering you a choice. She turned back to the Emperor. Accept our demands, acknowledge what was done, treat with us as equals, and we will pursue peace. We will use our agents to help stabilize your empire instead of tearing it apart. We will share the technologies we have developed. We will become the ally you could have had 3,000 years ago, if your ancestors had not been so afraid. Emperor Voreth was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something that might have been exhaustion. And if I refuse? Ji-won's eyes hardened. Then we will become the enemy you feared. Not today. Perhaps not for a century. But eventually. Because that is what humans do, Your Majesty. We endure. We adapt. We remember. And we never stop fighting until we win, or we die. She took one step back and folded her hands in front of her. Before I left Earth, I activated something we call a dead man's switch. If I do not send a signal within 48 hours, every secret we have gathered will be broadcast to every corner of this galaxy. Every crime your empire has hidden, every deal your officials have made, every weakness in your defenses. Your subject species will have everything they need to tear your empire apart from the inside. Lady Mira looked like she was going to be sick. You would destroy the stability of the entire galaxy, she whispered. Billions would die in the chaos. Yes, Ji-won said simply. We would. Because our ancestors tried being peaceful, and your empire responded with genocide. So now we do not bluff. We do not make empty threats. We do what we say we will do, no matter the cost. She met the Emperor's gaze one final time. That is humanity's declaration, Your Majesty. Peace or war. Partnership or destruction. The choice is yours. You have 47 hours and 53 minutes to make it. Then she bowed slightly, turned, and walked toward the exit. Sunho fell into step beside her. The crowd of aliens parted before them like water before a ship. Behind them, Emperor Voreth sat on his throne of starlight, staring at the space where the human woman had stood. For the first time in 400 years, he did not know what to do. The next 3 days were the longest of Kang Ji-won's life. She and Sunho waited on the horizon's edge, orbiting Valora Prime under the watchful eyes of 10,000 warships. Every hour, a dozen different alien species sent them messages. Some offered support, some threatened destruction. Some simply wanted to know if the humans were telling the truth. Jiwan answered none of them. She sat in her quarters, drinking tea and waiting. There was nothing more to say. She had laid all of humanity's cards on the table. Now the Emperor had to decide. On the second day, Sun Ho came to her with worry in his eyes. "The Imperial fleet is moving," he said. "3 battle groups are forming attack positions around us." Jiwan did not look up from her tea. "Are they powering weapons?" "Not yet. Then they are just trying to scare us." "Let them. It changes nothing." Sun Ho sat down across from her. For a moment, he looked very young. "What if they decide to destroy us? What if the Emperor thinks the cost of war is worth it to silence us?" Jiwan finally looked at him. Her eyes were kind but tired. "Then we die. And the dead man's switch activates, and the Empire burns. That was always a possible outcome. We knew that when we left Earth." "I know," Sun Ho said. I hoped it would not end that way." "So do I." Jiwan reached across the table and patted his hand. "But whatever happens, we have already won." The subject species saw us stand before the Emperor and speak as equals. They saw us show proof of Imperial crimes. That memory will spread through the galaxy no matter what happens to us. We have planted a seed that can never be unplanted. On the morning of the 3rd day, as the deadline approached its final hours, a small shuttle left the Imperial Palace and flew toward the horizon's edge. It carried no weapons. It bore the Emperor's personal seal. Jiwan met the shuttle in the ship's small docking bay. She was wearing her blue hanbok again. Sun Ho stood beside her, ready for anything. The shuttle door opened. Instead of soldiers, a single figure stepped out. It was Emperor Vorath himself. Without guards, without advisors, without any protection at all, he looked different outside his throne room. Smaller, somehow. More like a person and less like a symbol. His 4 eyes studied Jiwan with an expression she could not read. "You surprised me," he said. His voice was quiet. Nothing like the booming command he had used in court. "In 400 years, no one has surprised me." I had forgotten what it felt like. Jiwan bowed her head slightly. "Your Majesty." The Emperor walked past her, looking around the small human ship. His claws clicked against the metal floor. "This vessel, it truly was built with stolen technology, improved technology," Sun Ho said. "We learned from you, but we did not simply copy. We made things better." Vorath made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Of course you did. That is what makes your species so dangerous. You do not just survive. You adapt. You improve. You become more." He turned back to face Jiwan. "My ancestors made a mistake 3,000 years ago. They saw your potential and were afraid. They thought the only solution was destruction. They were wrong." Jiwan waited, her heart beating fast. "I have spent 3 days studying your evidence," the Emperor continued. "I have confirmed its truth through my own archives. The attack on your colony was real. The cover-up was real. My empire committed genocide against a peaceful species, and then we erased the crime from history." He was quiet for a moment. "I cannot undo what was done. I cannot bring back your dead. But I can do what should have been done long ago. I can acknowledge the truth." He reached into his robes and pulled out a crystal disc. It glowed with inner light. "This contains my official decree. Humanity is hereby recognized as a sovereign interstellar nation, with full rights under galactic law. A formal apology for the destruction of your colony will be broadcast to every world in the Empire. A memorial will be constructed on Valora Prime. The reparations you requested will be paid over the next 50 years. Jiwan took the disc with trembling hands. She had hoped for this outcome, but she had not truly believed it would happen. "Why?" she asked. "You could have destroyed us. You could have risked the war. Why choose peace?" Emperor Vorath looked at her with his 4 ancient eyes. "Because you were right. My ancestors tried to destroy you because they feared what you might become. But fear is a poor reason for genocide, and their fear was justified. It seems, you have become exactly what they feared. Powerful, clever, dangerous. But you have also become something else. What is that? Forgiving." The Emperor shook his head slowly. You could have demanded my throne. You could have demanded the destruction of my fleets. You could have asked for 100 worlds as payment for your dead. Instead, you asked for acknowledgement, for equality, for a memorial. You asked for things that cost me pride, not power. That told me something important about your species. He turned toward the shuttle. We will speak again. Ambassador Kang, there is much to discuss. Trade agreements, defense pacts, cultural exchanges. The work of building peace is harder than the work of making war. We are ready for that work, Jiwan said. I believe you are. The Emperor paused at the shuttle door. One last question. The dead man's switch. Was it real? Jiwan smiled slightly. What do you think, Your Majesty? The Emperor studied her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the docking bay. I think I am glad I did not have to find out. He stepped into the shuttle and was gone. That night, Jiwan stood at the observation window, watching the stars. Behind her, Sunho was sending reports back to Earth. The news would reach home in a few hours. Humanity was free. Humanity was recognized. Humanity had won. But the work was not over. Jiwan opened a secure channel to Admiral Yun Taesun, commander of humanity's hidden fleet. The Emperor has agreed to our terms, she said. Phase 1 is complete. Taesun's voice came back, crackling with distance. Congratulations, Ambassador. What are your orders? Jiwan looked out at the endless stars. Somewhere out there, other species lived under the Empire's rule. Some of them had been conquered. Some of them had been broken. Some of them, perhaps, had their own histories that had been stolen, and their own dead that had been forgotten. Begin Phase 2, she said. It is time to find out who else remembers what the Empire did to them. It is time to make some friends. The stars blurred into hyperspace, and the horizon's edge began its journey home. But Jiwan knew that this was not an ending. It was a beginning. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same. 3,000 years ago, the Empire had tried to destroy them. Now, humanity would help reshape the galaxy itself, not through war, not through conquest, but through the simple, unstoppable power of remembering the truth and refusing to forget.